Hi everybody, very welcome to yet another Sunday night live stream here on the Mentor Pilot channel. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic wherever you are out there in our wild round world. So tonight I'm doing a live stream on YouTube. I have already done 3 live streams earlier this week inside of the Mentor Aviation app. And one thing that I wanted to start by asking you, on Friday, I released a quite controversial video on the Mentor Aviation app, right? I made it available for my premium users. First of all, they always get, access to the videos that I'm a little bit unsure about first. Well, the first ones that actually get to see them are my Patreons. My Patreon crew, they always get to preview my videos. And already there was a little bit of controversy, all right? There was about 1/3 of the people, no, 25% of my Patreons didn't think that I should release that video at all, okay? And the rest, 75% obviously, they thought that I should release it to the world. And so what I've done is I have released the video inside of the app. And I would like to hear from those of you who've seen the app, those of you who are premium users or who have actually purchased the video from inside the app, what you think about it. Should I release it on YouTube or not? Let me know. If you next time you go into the Mentor Aviation app, please let me know, because I'm still a little bit torn whether or not I should let it go. I think personally that it would be that it would be a good video to release, but since it is as controversial as it seems to be, I'm not really sure. So let me know anyway. So let's see. The way that this works, guys, if you haven't done this before, is that I will answer as many questions as I can. I will take them primarily from the super chat. The super chat is from people who are actually paying for questions, and I've had questions about why I'll do it that way, and the answer is simple. I'm using that money to build things like the application, for example, to rent simulators, to make great and cool content for you guys. So first, I'll take those questions. I will take questions from the normal chat as well, so don't worry. But the super chat questions take priority. And then if there are some questions inside of the app chat, well then I will take it from there as well. Anyway, so we already have some super chat questions here. Jeremy Canna was the first one out. And he asked, does the crew member doing the walk around usually combine that with monitoring the loading of fuel, or usually have to go outside twice? And the answer to that is yes. The pilot monitoring, who is going to be the one who does the walk around and checks for any external damage and things, they will also do the fuel monitoring if it's needed. The time that we do fuel monitoring is when we have passengers on board and we're fueling. And that's to make sure that in case there is, for example, a fuel leak or there's a fire or anything happening with the fueling, that he or she can communicate that quickly to the pilot that's still in the flight deck, so that we can evacuate the aircraft or stop the boarding if that's the case. So the pilot monitoring will go out. Normally they will connect themselves, they will establish communication with the flight crew, and depending on which country we're in, they can either start the walk around, because they then can quickly run back to the headset in case something happened. Or if you're in Italy or Spain, then we have to be on the headset and monitor the fueling as long as there's passengers on board, and then we can start doing the walk around. So that's the way that works. And normally you don't have to go out twice. However, sometimes, we might be able to do the walk around, the last passenger get off, I run on board. If I'm pilot monitoring, we do some stuff in the flight deck, some checks and stuff, and then when the passengers are starting to arrive again, if the fueling is still going on, then I have to get out again to make sure that I'm on the headset while we're being boarded. So great question, and that's the way it is. The second question is from Max Witt. Max, thank you very much for helping the channel out. And the question is, good evening, Mentor. I got a question the other day. Why do some procedures take so many steps? Wouldn't it be easier to automate more, like a fully automated cabin pressure during startup? It's a good question, and the fact is that it has a lot to do with what aircraft type that you fly. So the 737 is notoriously old school, like it's from the 60s, and because of that, not a lot of things were actually automated. So we do have to, like when we start up our engines, it's actually like 7 steps that we have to go through in order to start our engines, while on the Airbus it will be just kind of engine start and it will all be automated. So I agree, automation is normally quite good, but on the 737 you know, it'll probably, you know, I'm guessing that it's very different if you want to start an engine on a 787, and you don't have to like manually feed the fuel on at a certain percentage of N2 and things like that. But that's kind of a little bit with the charm as well with flying some of the older aircraft types, that it is a little bit more of a handmade craft, you know. So that's the reason. A lot of other procedures are built that way because it has to be able to cover a lot of different scenarios. So you start with one step, and depending on then what these outside conditions are, for example, or whatever, then you take either one step or a different step. So it kind of branches out depending on how the situation looks. And of course, then it has to be, you know, it has to be a procedure that is built on all conceivable different situations that can appear. So that's why the procedures tend to, at least from the onset, look very complicated, but there is a reason behind it. Automation is good, but you have to remember that automation really is only, it's considered like a third crew member. Right? We don't look at automation as something to do the job for us. We look at automation as something that will help us to make our job better, to do a better job at what we do. But we still have to monitor the automation. Like if you leave automation to do what it does, it will make loads of mistakes, and there will be loads of things that goes wrong. You cannot trust it. It has to be completely and constantly monitored. So that's why automation without artificial intelligence is just a tool in the toolbox we have in order to make the flight as safe as possible for you guys. So that's where it is. Right, more questions. Jake Schroeder, great to have you here, Jake. Jake is a long-time follower of the channel. I see Jake here almost every live stream. You know, you guys might not think that I recognize faces. You know, if you're in the Mentour Aviation app, I might recognize your face or names, but there are a few people who's been around here for years, and I do recognize you guys, and I do appreciate all that you do, especially those of you who are in the app and answering questions and helping the community out, because that's what it is. This is a community of people who want aviation to be something fun, constructive and positive. And Jake, you're one of those, so great to have you here. So to your question, Jake, on a very short flight where a normal altitude won't be reached, how is a cruise altitude determined? Well, like I mentioned in my video that I just released on Friday about the 5 greatest fears during descent, a perfect flight is basically a parabol. So it's, or a parabol. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. Basically, full climb, no cruise, and idle descent. Right? That's what we're trying to achieve. So on a short flight, if we can achieve that, like for example, I fly from Girona to Palma de Mallorca, which is a 30-minute flight, then we tend to climb up to about 25, maybe 26,000 feet, and then you have maybe a 2-minute cruise segment, and then it starts to descend in. So that's the most economical way of flying, and that's what it is. We can actually, you know, once we punch the route in, then we can, the FMC will determine what our optimum altitude is. And if it's a very short flight, the optimum altitude might be 26,000 feet or 18,000 feet or something like that. So so there is mathematics behind it. It's not done by chance. Great question though. As always, there's always questions in here. There are always questions that comes up on these live streams, guys, that I would have never thought about. That's why I love doing this, why I love interacting with you guys, because there's always new stuff appearing, and some of them might be good enough to even base a video on. So keep asking your questions, guys. Escalion, that's a new name here. Hi Mentor, greetings from Hungary. Greetings from Spain. I'm starting flight training next summer. Do you have any tips for someone who's just starting out? Yes, so it depends a little bit on what kind of flight training you're doing. If you're doing an integrated training or if you're doing it modular. But if you, no matter what, right now when you're about to kind of get ready for it, I would suggest to you that you get your hold on the PPL theory, like the theory package from PPL, which is going to be the first stage, even if you do it modular or integrated, and start reading the theory behind, because it will give you a good foundation so that when you start your flight training, you will understand more, right? Rather than having to do all of the theory when you start off, then you can read some of it now. You won't understand everything because obviously you're going to need instructors and stuff to explain things to you. However, those questions, if you have those questions written down, it'll be more questions for you to give to your instructors once your training starts. So basically you're giving yourself a little bit of a head start, which is what I would suggest. Otherwise, just research. I don't know if you're going to have to move to start your flight training. In that case, make sure that you find yourself good living quarters which have easy commute to where you're going to be training. Make your life as easy as possible, right? That's something that I tend to do all the time. I prepare myself. I do a little bit of extra work before in order to make my life easier later, because that's what it's all about. When it comes to like workload management, for example, it's a lot about just making sure that you have prepared properly for it. So that's my suggestion, and I hope that helps a little bit. Seola Farina, great to have you here. It could be Keola as well, Seola or Keola. It's a beautiful name anyway. How difficult are the math and physics involved in training? I love your videos. Well, it's hard to tell. It's hard to say how difficult you will find them. I am not a math genius, right? Far from it. I had to always work with my math and physics when I was in school myself. I didn't find it very hard, but then again, I had studied mathematics in my junior college up to a quite high level. So we're talking, I don't know exactly how your math courses are structured, but in Sweden, where I'm from, you have math A, B, C, D, E, F, right? The math that you will come across in flight training is about mathematics C. So finding out X, some lighter work like that, algebra, these kind of things you have to be able to control. But it's not like you have to be able to read graphs and extrapolate from graphs and do interpolation and some things like that. But it's no brain surgery stuff. Like, it's not that hard. It's just quite a lot of it, and you have to be able to both do the math and understand it at the same time and under quite short time period. So that's why I'm saying, that's why, for example, Brilliant.org, I really love them as a sponsor for my channel, because I know that they know math and physics, and they can kind of teach, not aviation related, it's not aviation related, but it is related to overall understanding of math and physics. And that's what I'm trying to promote. I'm trying to get you guys to be properly prepared once you get into it. But because when you're in it, you won't have time to pick it up. Like, you won't have time to go back and read through your mathematics C course notes to write. You have to kind of have a good knowledge of it. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really hard. Things like navigation and weight and balance calculations and those kind of things. POD, PNR calculations. Those of you who've done ATPL theory know what I'm talking about. But no, it's not very hard. Not if you're good at maths anyway. Sam Petros, good to have you here, Sam. Sam is one of the administrators of the Mentour Aviation app. He's the one that's responsible for all of the great news content. Well, not all, but a lot of the news content. If you go in and you look at the forums inside of the Mentour Aviation app, you will notice that there is a aviation news forum that's almost always at the top, and that's because Sam keeps feeding in news about aviation from all over the world. I have no idea how he finds time to do all of that, but it's greatly appreciated, and I know that quite a few of the people who have the app uses it because of the news feed. So great work, Sam. Sam is asking, just wanted to give big thumbs up for your app. Well, there you go. That's the kind of community that I'm talking about, the kind of community feeling that I'm talking about. And actually, the app is doing good now. It's been picking up quite a lot of new users, which is great to see. And I can see them all interacting, and there's some great discussions going on in the app. Right, before I go any further, I'm going to take some from the normal chat as well here, so I don't completely forget about you. What did you think about AFTA? So yeah, I went to visit AFTA. It's a training organization that does integrated courses in Cork, Ireland. I was invited to come there, and I have some friends who have connections to AFTA, so I wanted to check it out. And it's completely positive. like the view I got was not only a competent training organization, but a competent training organization with a heart, as in they actually seem to care quite a lot about the success of their students, and that can make all of the difference. So from the short visit that I had, I didn't go into their finances, I didn't go into all of the learning material or anything, but the feeling I had from all of the students that I met and from all of the people that were working there is that it is a very competent and very positive training organization, just in line with the kind of organizations that I like to push, that I like to see succeed. So I wouldn't be afraid of sending my son to go study there, basically. Cool. I can take one more question from the normal chat before I go on with the super chat here. So how do you determine what height to set setting the MFRA? MFRA is minimum flap retraction altitude on the barrel minima. Is it 1000 feet AGL plus the airfield elevation? Yes, that tends to be the case. This is company specific, okay? So in my company we tend to normally keep 1000 plus airfield elevation, but it's also a difference depending on what kind of thrust setting you have. So when we calculate this, we have an OPT, an operational performance tool. We do all our performance calculation, and when we're done with that, it will stipulate what the minimum flap retraction altitude is. It can be 1000 feet plus field elevation, but it can also be higher than that. So you can't say for sure anymore. Back in the day it used to always be that, but not anymore. Davey, big thumbs up also. Make sure that you have it. Thank you, Davey. Jack is another one of my administrators, so you will see him also. He is doing a great job when it comes to the graphics of the application, and also keeping up the chat and keeping the push notifications going and stuff. So we're basically 4 people that's doing the job of the app at the moment, and Adrian, Jack, and Sam are the other 3, except for me. And a huge thank you to you guys. You're doing a fantastic job at the moment. So Luke Holmes sent in a super chat but didn't ask a question. That might be that it didn't catch. In that case, as I always say, if you've done a super chat and it didn't come through, I want to answer your question anyway. So just go to Mentour Aviation, the app, okay? I always push the app, and go to settings. There is a submit feedback there. Push that, write super chat, because that will send an email to me, and then write the question, okay? So I'll answer it for you. Thumbs up to the app. All of my administrators in here kicking it. This time it is Adrian who's pushing it. Thanks, guys. You guys are doing a great job as well. You don't have to do super chat though. You know, you can reach me via the normal like messenger. Barry Bird. Why do mobile devices need to be in flight mode on a plane? Is there any science proving that there are interference with instruments? He's a ramp agent at East Midlands. Well, yes, there is and there isn't. All right. When it comes to the use of radio transmitters, which a mobile device tend to be, like a mobile phone, we do know that they cause interference with the radio signals. As in, I have heard it myself when I've been flying and someone has forgotten the mobile phone on. You get that meep, 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 meep in your headset. That's one reason. There are suggestions that they could interfere with navigational equipment, like for example our Cat 3, the ILS signal. However, that has not been substantiated. But when it comes to this, the aviation world does what it always does. It plays it safe. Right. It's much better to tell everyone to just keep your mobile devices in flight mode for these 2 hours of your life than it is to let 200 people in the cabin try to reach their mobile or try to call mom just as we're coming in for approach at the same time, because we don't know one might be okay, two might be okay, we don't know. But it's everyone, you know how the mobile devices work, that they start looking for a mobile transmitter, like a mast, whenever they can, and the further away they come, the more they will send out signals, the stronger the signal search will be. It's going to be the same with all of these 200 mobile devices, okay? So there will be interference. To what extent, we don't know, and we don't want to know. We don't want to be the guinea pigs who find out that, oh, on this occasion, it actually made the ILS go completely crazy. That's not how aviation works. We make sure that we minimize the risk, and one way of minimizing the risk is to tell people to turn off their mobile phones. And you guys, you don't need your mobile phones all the time. Tell me I'm addicted to my iPhone. It's terrible. Jeffrey McKee, another name that I recognize. Great to have you here, Jeffrey, and thank you for supporting. Hi, love your videos. Thanks for your hard work. Can you talk about managing ground steering in high speeds, like takeoff and landing, especially in rain and wind? Yeah, sure. Rain doesn't affect too much, especially not at low speed. When we're taxiing, I always use the tiller, which is on the side, which I've shown in a few of my videos. And it's really, the aircraft is going to want to weathercock into the wind, and that's because the wind is pushing on the rudder. So if I'm taxiing like this, let's see if I have some, I don't have a model with me here, but if this is the aircraft, this here is the rudder. If the wind pushes the rudder, it will turn like that. So you have to constantly kind of counteract the weathercocking effect when you're taxiing. That is more pronounced in lower speeds. As we increase the speed during the takeoff roll, for example, well, then we don't use the tiller, then we use the rudder pedals instead. The pedals have about 7 degrees of movement on the nose wheel. That's enough for the takeoff and the landing roll. And as the speed goes higher, well, then the wind is going to have less of a weathercocking effect, and we're going to need less and less. But that's how we counteract it. We sit, we use the rudders at high speed, we use the tillers at low speed, and if we feel that we have a problem controlling the aircraft, let's say that it's, for example, slippery and the wind is pushing the nose wheel, well, then we just stop and ask for assistance. Could need a tow truck, for example, to get us to the gate. That has happened on occasion. Another great question. Cool. Davey, what is the pilot's social life balance like? In my case, quite good at the moment. It depends very much on what kind of operation that you're doing. If you're flying long haul, if you're flying cargo, if you're flying short to medium haul. I'm flying short to medium haul. I don't have any stopovers. I always go home to my wife. So for example, this week I'm starting off tomorrow flying late. So I'm doing 2 sectors tomorrow. So that means that I'll be home most of the day. I'll go up maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon and come back at midnight, sleep at home, and then I have 2 sectors the following day, which means I'm home almost the whole day, again to midnight. And then on Wednesday I have a really long day where, by the way, I'm coming up to East Midlands if you're there, and then I will be into work maybe at 11 o'clock, and then I'll be home at midnight, and then I do another 2 sectors on Thursday, and then I'm off again. So in my case, the work-life balance is very, very good. However, if I was working long haul, or if I was working cargo and working nights, for example, it would be a completely different thing. So you have to be aware of this when you take your first jobs. Like, it will, in some cases, have a quite dramatic effect on your relationships to your friends, your wife, and so on. It's one of the potential downsides of this job. That's how it is. So, more question. What is next for the app? I don't know. Like, I have spent, during the last half a year, I have spent a lot of money and a lot of effort to do these latest upgrades. Basically, it took it from being a video player only to a social media app. Right now, you can, there are forums where you can discuss different technical subjects, or nervous flyer forums, or what's up with the 737 MAX, or how to speak proper aviation English. There is a chat where everyone can kind of just hang out and chat about different things. You can like posts. There's a high score, which is, by the way, AVA is dominating at the moment, with the most liked scores ever. And there's profiles. You can write on your own CV. You have your own profile pictures. You can copy and paste messages. Like, there's loads of stuff that I've done during the last 6 months that have made the app into somewhere close to what I want, right? What I would like to do next is to do something truly spectacular, because what I want is for everyone who's interested in aviation to have this app and to use it. So in order for me, now I've done the things that I thought that you guys would like. But in fact, you know, people are spending maybe 4 minutes a day on the app. I would love that to be much more, because I need you guys to be in there for it to be vibrant, to be cool. So I'm looking into things like, for example, maybe having a separate picture, like aviation picture forum, where people can put their pictures up and like and comment and do kind of like an Instagram but for aviation. That is one idea. Other things is a dedicated news forum where we, all of the admins, write little news articles and link to the news so that you can easily find them. But there's loads of things to be done. However, all of that does cost a lot of money. All right, and it's primarily financed by people choosing to take premium. So get, like I said, see these like maybe a little bit more controversial videos. Some of my instructional videos are there. And also, by the way, you can, and I hope that you know that, those of you who are in there, you can get, if you get the all-in-one 360 collection, it means that you can get almost 2 hours of 737 instruction. And you know, you can either swipe around and look inside of the cockpit, or you can move the device around to look at what we're doing. Or if you have one of these like Google Cardboard headset, you can put it on and it'll feel just like you're sitting on the jump seat together with me while we're doing things like, for example, a full setup or a TCAS maneuver or engine failure after takeoff. Those things are in there as well, and that's what's funding the next step. So I need you guys to tell me what you would like to see. You know, is there something special that you would like me to add to the app, that you think this is something that I would always loved in an aviation app? Why doesn't it have this? And then we can have a look at it. Pietro Pisigella. That's my Italian, sorry. Hi, do you ever fly to or from Bergamo? Does runways have a weight specification, or as long as they are long, wide enough, you can land any plane? Great question. I don't fly to Bergamo at the moment. I'm spending quite a lot of time in the simulator in Bergamo during the winter normally. So I tend to spend a bit of time in Bergamo every year. I love that place. It's beautiful around there. When it comes to your question, there is something called the pavement classification number. So, that's it, pavement classification number. And it's specified, you know, how much weight any runway can take. And if that is low, it means that it cannot take very high weights. That's true for taxiways as well. But most runways are made sure to be able to handle, you know, I'm going to say most commercial runways can handle any type of aircraft. Then it's just going to be the runway length to decide whether or not the 380 can land. But if you're looking into the strips, like, you know, like general aviation strips and stuff, they can't take a 737 down there. It's just not possible. It would basically stamp a big hole in the runway if it tried. Jacob Way White. Hi, what tone of voice should you use on ATC? Well, when it comes to ATC communication, you just need to be clear and articulated. All right, you need to listen so that you don't cut other transmissions off, and then you need to know what to say, and you need to say so in a clear and articulated way. So I don't vary my voice when I talk to ATC. I'll tell them, General Tower Mentour 360, we are on stand 1-2 and request startup clearance, please. Something like that. Then we'll come back and give me startup clearance, and I will read that back. But just be clear and articulated. Don't do any funny voice; they will just laugh at you. Cohen, Kuipers. No. I'm gonna try not to pronounce it. You know, I'm just gonna make a fool of myself. As you know, our king flies for KLM every now and again. How does this affect the captain? Would you like to fly with your king? Yeah, well, you know, the fact that he is flying for KLM as a first officer means that he has to comply with both the rules of the air and the rules of the airline. So that means that as long as he's the first officer and the captain is the captain, he will do what the captain tells him. All right? So the captain shouldn't have to think about it. Naturally, he probably will. He will be a bit starstruck or whatever to fly with the king. But I would think that the king probably has made it very, very clear that he is just one of the crew and that he doesn't want any kind of special treatment. And I think that KLM probably have made it very clear to him that if he wants to fly for them, he needs to work under the same rules as everyone else. Otherwise, the CRM would not work. And if I would like to fly with him, yeah, I'd love to. You know, there's nothing that I think is more fascinating than, you know, meeting up, speaking to new people and people with different points of views and stuff. So to be able to fly with someone of royal descent would be really cool, because I would be asking all of the questions that I want to know. So, Tomathon, isn't airlaw just the most dry subject? Yes, it is. Airlaw is the most dry subject, at least in my view. All the others, I mean, but then again, it depends very much on how you see it, because airlaw is also something that you will use almost on a daily basis. Well, you will use it on a daily basis, so you need to know that stuff. While there are other stuff in the aviation theory that you probably will never come across again. I mean, I have never worked with a Omega transmitter since I did my ATPL theory. Loran C is also very rare to use, even though it was a big part of my navigation exam. I haven't had to do manual calculations of my variation over the North Pole either. So those are the kind of things that might look interesting while you're reaching it, but you will never use it in real life, while airlaw is something that you very much will use in real life, you know. And if you don't know it, you are going to pay for it one way or another. I'm just going to take some coffee here before it gets too cold. So, Jacob Waywhite, you're on fire today, Jacob. How do flight numbers work? Like Romeo Yankee Romeo 3653. Well, they get assigned. Okay, they get assigned when we do something called repetitive flight plans, and those flight plans are filed the same way for each of the same flights every day. So if I fly from Girona to Eindhoven, it's going to be the one flight plan that gets refiled over and over again, unless there's something happening. Those also tend to get the same call signs, unless there are other similar call signs that is somewhere en route at the same time. In that case, they are going to put a alphanumerical figure to it. So instead of having Romeo Yankee Romeo 3653, it's going to be Romeo Yankee Romeo 36 Alpha Bravo, for example. Who actually assigns these call signs, I believe, is Eurocontrol. I'm not 100% sure here, but it's not the airline anyway. The airline can have something to do with it, though. If I find that it is let's say I fly a Mentour 360, okay, just out of coincidence, and then there is a Mentour 361 that's flying along the same route. Well, then they are going to be there's a chance, or a Mentour 306, right? So there's a Mentour 360 and a Mentour 306. Those are very similar call signs. So I would then contact my company and say, listen, on this date, on this frequency, there are two very similar call signs. They can then apply to get one of them changed, so that there is no conflict. So these things, they happen regularly, especially the bigger the airline becomes, the more call signs they have and the more risk of call sign confusion there is. Steve, great channel. Thank you. Thank you. I do my best. I'm trying to come up with some really interesting new stuff. That's why I did this slightly controversial video about how a passenger can land an aircraft or so. I know it doesn't sound controversial, but apparently it was. So I'm always trying to kind of push the line a little bit. This still might be released on YouTube, guys, but it's gone so far that I need to get it cleared with the security, the head of security in my airline. They need to come in and check that it's okay. before I release it, and I might have to do some changes to it. But it is available inside of the app if you're curious. Ian, Jill, another familiar face. Petter, people expect something for nothing. As an oldie who travels, I don't need the app, but but the cost of an occasional Starbucks is worth it. Thank you, Ian. That's what I'm hoping, right? The premium membership in the app only costs $5 per month. All right. For that, you get access. You'll be able to ask questions when I do app live streams. Everyone can watch the live streams, but only the premium members can ask questions. You'll be able to see and stream the special videos that I put out. You'll be able to see other people's like counts and their aviation CVs and some other cool stuff as well. I think it's worth it. I think that I would pay, especially if I knew that actually helps against new future features to be added as well. But then again, I also know that people hate having to subscribe to stuff, and I completely understand that, guys. But we'll see. Thank you for your support anyway, Ian. Luke Holmes, opinions on electric airplanes. I think that they are very, very cool. I hope sincerely that we'll get to see more of it. I don't think that we will see electrical airlines anytime soon, but I do think that we might start to see hybrid. I think that we will see, for example, some kind of electric drive to use during pushback and taxi out, so that we can start our engine just before takeoff. That would save. We use about like 150 to almost 200 kilos of fuel for each flight during taxi, right? So if I do 4 flights a day, it's almost 800 kilos of fuel that I use to taxi around on the ground. All of that could be done today without anything else, could be done by a electrical tug that could be controlled from the cockpit. I do not understand why we don't have that already. Like, connect it, have someone push us back, release us, have us control that tug via a joystick or something in the cockpit, taxi out, release the tug can find its way back like a good old Roomba back to the charging station to be ready for the next one. We could start up our engines on the holding point, and we could go, and we would save a ton of fuel per aircraft. Almost 2 tons of fuel per day, because an aircraft does 8 flights per day. Imagine that with a fleet side of, so let's say, for example, Ryanair, that has like 400 aircraft. So take that 2 tons times 400 and see how much fuel that is in one day, right? That's one thing. Next thing is, I'm sure that we'll be able to see hybrid drives to help during takeoff, for example, maybe during low part of the climb, to run the fans or whatever, some kind of hybrid drive to use. The problem is the batteries and the energy density of the batteries. But I was at Friedrichshafen, Aero Friedrichshafen this year, and Siemens was there. They're doing some great job on batteries for aviation, and they're running like avionetas, the smaller aircraft, Cessnas, the equivalent of Cessnas, on battery with an autonomy of I think 2 hours now. So you can switch in a battery, fly a Cessna for 2 hours, or at least 1 hour and a half or something, come back in, hot swap the battery, and fly again, right? I think OSM Flight Academy in Sweden ordered like 113 of those electrical aircraft just this spring to be used in their facilities in Sweden and in the Nordics. So it's coming, and the energy density is getting better and better every day. So last year they've doubled, the last few years have doubled energy density. So we're looking into soon having some really, really capable batteries, hopefully that are safe as well, that can be used in this way. And that's what I'm hoping for. I don't think that we'll get rid of fossil fuels in aviation completely for a long time to go, and that has to do with the fact that jet fuel works great in both very high temperatures and very low temperatures. They have the same kind of energy output, and that's not the case if you look at I think well, hydrogen might work, but hydrogen is very, very hard to stow. But there are other, like ethanol, for example, that doesn't work that well when the temperature starts dropping. So I do think that we'll see some really cool stuff. We will see, you know, these small air taxis. They will definitely going to be battery driven. The training industry is going to go battery very soon. So I think hopefully we're getting there. Great question, Luke. By the way, that might definitely have a video on it. Dimitar Krastev. I have noticed on the pre-flight checks before takeoff when spoilers are tested, not all spoilers are deployed. Why is that? That's because when we're testing flight controls, we're only testing the flight spoilers. So the other spoilers, the so-called ground spoilers, they're not used there because they're not part of the flight control programming. Okay, so when we move, we're actually testing the yoke left and right, you'll only see the flight spoilers coming up. The ground spoilers will only come up as part of the landing or part of a rejected takeoff procedure. Can you tell us when the flight path vector button is used on the 737 from BKG? Yeah, I never use it, right? Some people like it, some people don't. The flight path vector basically is telling us what the aircraft is doing. So if I'm flying with a very high angle of attack, for example, at a very low speed, I might have a very high nose attitude. The low speed makes me still keep level flight, even though the nose is high. Well, in that case, the flight path vector will sit on the horizon. Okay, it will show exactly what the aircraft is doing. If it's flying level, if it's climbing, if it's descending. And it has nothing to do with the nose attitude of the aircraft, which in my view, since I'm not used to using it, is a little bit confusing. Right? It's easy to confuse the two and to get it mixed up, and you don't want that during critical situations. But there are people, especially old fighter pilots, who use the flight path vector a lot when they fly with their head-up display, that loves the the flight path vector. It's in my airline, you can use it or you can skip it. It's up to each pilot, really. Barry Bird, what's the most challenging airport you've taxied at? I was recently at Alpha Yankee Tango as a passenger, and it looks confusing. Yeah, I was supposed to fly to Frankfurt, Maine tomorrow. Fortunately, that got changed into something shorter. That looks very complicated. Otherwise, Manchester is known for having a very complicated structure with multiple runways. Gatwick can get quite messy as well. Gatwick is basically just one big lump of tarmac and loads of taxiways that's crossing each other. But I think, yeah, I haven't flown to some of the really big ones. But Gatwick I've been to, Manchester I've been to, what else? Where else have I been? I've been to quite a few places. Barcelona, of course. Barcelona is that's quite a lot. It's about 20 minutes of taxiing there, but you get used to it also very, very quickly. That's the thing. Once you've been to a place once, you tend to kind of learn the standard taxiways and what to expect. And it's only really complicated for the first ones, maybe first 2 or 3 times that you're there. Then it becomes second nature, as with everything else. Licodio. How does the airline deal with pilot mistakes? Who reports them? Are these cases where a pilot did something so wrong he was fired? Do these things happen? Because you never see it in the media. Yeah, you do see it in the media. All right. We make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I make a mistake. I'll probably make a mistake tomorrow. Everyone does. Right. We have to report them ourselves. If there's something that is dangerous, we have to make a report about it. So if I've done an approach that I shouldn't have done, like come in hot and high, I wasn't sure if I was properly stabilized, then I write a report about it, and they check it up. And if it turns out that it actually was something dangerous, well, then I might get called in for a meeting. We discuss it. Maybe there's some extra training. Maybe a line check is needed or something like that. So it's not punitive. It's there to make sure that the people are trained to be as good as possible. Now I'm speaking for my airline here. I can't speak for the whole industry. But the times where you get in trouble is either where you've done something potentially dangerous and you've not reported it. So you're trying to kind of, hoping that no one will notice. That is not good, and that can render you in a lot of trouble. The other thing is when you do something that you know is wrong, something that breaks the rules. I, as a commander, am responsible for the people that I fly. If I do something knowingly wrong, then I also have to take responsibility for that if something happens. So that's when you can get in real trouble. And when you've seen stuff like people have done like really, really bad mistakes. I think there was a crew in India last year that forgot to take the gear up for the whole flight and couldn't understand why they couldn't climb up to their cruising altitude, and why they were suddenly starting to run low on fuel and had to divert because the fuel obviously wasn't enough to reach the destination, and only during the descent they realized that the gear had been down all day. Now that is something that is potentially so serious that the aviation authorities might get involved and ask, where did these guys get their licenses? How do they keep their type rating? They might have to redo some of their training because of something like that. But that is also because, you know, there's been checklist points missed. Because if you forget the gear after takeoff, that happens. You know, it happens. Okay, it happens a lot in the sim, a lot during go around. But then you have the after takeoff checklist, and part of the after takeoff checklist is checking, is the gear up and off? Yes, no. And if you go past that, and you just skim it, you read it, you don't check it, well then you've lost that. So do you see that then there is a mistake, and then there's another mistake on top of that. And this is where the aviation authorities might come in and say, listen, there has to be some kind of level on this. So that can happen, but generally speaking there are never any punitive systems in force unless you do something criminal or you try to hide it. Then you can be you can face disciplinary kind of procedures. Otherwise, not really. Honest mistakes will always be honest mistakes, and if the company would start to punish honest mistakes, they would find themselves in a situation where no one reported those mistakes, and the whole safety culture of the airline would break down. So it's very important that there's an open, supportive and positive culture when it comes to reporting mistakes and allowing mistakes, to be honest. Like I said, we're all human, that's why there are two of us, so we can pick up each other's mistakes. It's normally very, very small things that happens. So, Cadu Lacerda. Maybe the weight of the battery is still too heavy and should be carried all the way to the destination. What do you think? Yeah, that is one of the problems, and that has to do with the, like I said, the energy kind of concentration. Because if you can manage to squeeze more energy into a smaller battery, it also means that you can, you know, motivate flying with them. At the moment, it requires a very heavy, very big battery for a very small amount of energy, and then it's not feasible. So, last super chat for the day, guys, because I am running out of voice. It comes from Lucy Amethyst. During a 180-degree low-speed turn on final approach to Dubai on the 380, it feels like the plane is pivoting in one position. How is it the wing is getting lift at such a high bank angle? Well, the thing is that you'll feel that it's a very high bank angle, but it actually isn't that high. I can guarantee you that they don't go over 30 degrees of bank. We have very, very set kind of, we know exactly how much bank we can make without it being a problem with the lift of the aircraft. We know that, you know, as the bank angle increases, the stall speed increases as well. Come. So you have to see the cutest things. This is one. And this is two. So, puppies. This is puppy from Patchy and Molly. And this one, he is only from Patchy and another little poodle. We have them taking care of them for their owners over the week, and they are terremotos. They're raging havoc, peeing everywhere, but it's okay because they're the cutest thing ever. There you go. So back to aviation. So what I'm saying basically when it comes to that is that you don't have to worry. It feels like there's a lot of bank. It's only about 30 degrees of bank, which is well within the normal envelope of the 380. So don't worry about it at all. And Dimitar Krastev, this is going to have to be the last one. What is the biggest, worst, in your opinion, mistake you've made yourself? I'm not going to sit here and think and talk about that. The biggest mistake that I've made myself. I've made some approaches that I shouldn't have. Like I've made approaches, and those tends to be the worst one. I actually wrote in, if you go to mentorpilot.com, which is here. I wrote about the worst feeling you can have after landing, and that's the feeling after having done an approach that you feel after landing that probably wasn't properly stabilized at 500 feet. And I think all the pilots out there have either done it or will do it. It happens to everyone, and I've done maybe 1 or 2 of those where I've asked myself afterwards, like, I wonder if that triggered something in the OFDM. That I think, but always when I've done that, I've also sent out like I said, a safety report on it, indicating that, okay, check this out. I don't know. I think I was stabilized. We might have had the thrust too low set or something during the last 500 feet. But generally speaking, I'm happy to say that so far at least I haven't done any huge major mistakes, but you do make mistakes. That's a fact of life, and you have to be aware of that when you get into this industry. You have to be aware of that in whatever industry you're in, whatever job that you do, that mistakes will happen. All right, it's how you deal with those mistakes and how you kind of get on with it that's going to determine whether or not you're successful in what you do. And with that bombshell, guys, I think that I'm going to finish off today. Like I said, I really hope that you have time to go in now to the Mentour Aviation app. I'm going to go into the chat now and answer some questions there. I usually do that, kind of hang out a little bit after these live streams to see what people think. So go and log into the app. And if you have just gotten the app, make sure that you go in and you fill in your profile. You go to settings, fill in your profile, and put in your profile picture. It can be an aircraft if you want. I just want some nice profile pictures out there. And if you like these these kind of things, because I know people have been asking about them, well, then there is a link to Teespring here on YouTube on every single one of my videos, or up in the right hand corner, I think, in the app, where you can get yourself some t-shirt or some mugs or something like that. It's loads of cool stuff there. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and a huge thank you to all of the patrons out there. Right, I cannot thank you guys enough. You're doing a fantastic job. It is great to have you on my team, and if you're watching this and you are a patron, feel proud of yourself. You're part of the success of this channel. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye bye.